Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. You are very welcome for who's on my left. This is Gerald. I got a couple of Halloween stuff around here, but this video is not Halloween themed because, believe it or not, October is not just about Halloween. October is, among many things, Filipino American History Month. So in celebration of Filipino Americans, I want to talk about the woman that created the Filipino flag. I chose this topic because I really don't know why, but I love flags. I love learning about flags. I love learning how flags were made. I really don't know what it is. Maybe it's from my American flag love and Susan B. Anthony has been seared into my brain. I don't know. I just love flags. Anyway, that Filipino woman is Marcela Agoncillo. Let's get started. Before I start, quick disclaimer. There are unfortunately not a lot of articles about Marcela. I have dug and dug till I was blue in the freaking face. I like to have a lot of resources in my research to make sure I'm giving the most authentic story of whoever I'm doing's life. And with her, there's just not a lot out there. However, if you know anything that I have missed or got wrong or just couldn't find, please kindly let me know in the comments. I seriously want to know if I got her right or got her wrong or was close. This is the best that I was able to find, and I really think it's authentic, and yeah. Also, we're in the Philippines. I'm going to do my best. Marcela Cornel Marinho was born on June 24th, 1859 in Batangas, Philippines. Her parents, who were fairly rich and very religious, were Don Francisco Daquino Marinho and Donna Eugenia Cornel Marinho. I hope I did that close enough. And Marcela grew up in her family's ancestral home in Tal that was built by her grandparents in the 1770s. Marcela was called the prettiest girl in Batangas and was fondly called Roslambabog, which means a virgin enthralled in the town church. She was called this because I really am trying my best. She was called this because reportedly people waited by the church patio that the family frequented for Marcela to appear in the morning. When she appeared, she was always accompanied by a maid or an elderly relative. This was traditional. Marcela was sent to study at the Santa Catalina College of the Dominican Nuns. This was an exclusive girls' school, and here she completed her elementary and secondary education. At the school, she learned Spanish, crafts, music, and social graces. This is basically manners, and this is expected of those of social stature in the Philippines. Marcela was a great singer and sometimes participated in... what is that? Marcela was a great singer and sometimes participated in zarzuelas, which are Spanish musicals, and she was very skilled in needlework. It was at these zarzuelas that she caught the attention of many male suitors, but it was jurist and Filipino lawyer Felipe Encarnacion Inocencio that caught Marcela's eye. I think I said that right. They were both 30 when they got married in 1889, and they moved to Manila and had 6 daughters. Nope. Lorenza, Gregoria, Eugenia, Marcela. She was named after her mom because they thought that she was going to be their last one, but God's funny like that. Next came Adela, who unfortunately died at 3, and lastly came Maria. All the daughters grew up to become smart, respectable women who worked hard and honestly. Most of the girls became teachers. Georgina became the first Filipina to graduate from Oxford. And interestingly, the girls were so immersed in themselves and their teaching careers that none of them got married. However, later in life, the youngest Maria did get married and had 3 kids. Now, one thing you need to know about Marcela is that she loved her nation. But before we move on, we need to talk about her husband, Felipe. He's relevant I promise his story is relevant to all this thing. You guys know I don't talk about the husbands and or men unless I absolutely have to, because on this channel, men are side characters. Felipe was the first Filipino diplomat and lawyer. He was the representative of the Philippines during negotiations in Paris that led to the 1898 Treaty of Paris, which in turn ended the Spanish-American War. That was very basic, and that is a story, not for this channel, but just know he's that level smart. What you need to know for Marcela's story at this point is that Felipe was continuing his legal services and did a lot of charity for the poor and oppressed, going as far as giving the poor legal service for free. And Marcela firmly stood by her husband. She believed that he was fighting the good fight against the corrupt Spanish authorities. This belief was solidified when Felipe's legal activities and preaches of patriotic ideas was found out by the local church community and was accused of being anti-religious and anti-patriotic. He was described as a filibustero, which means disloyal, and this activity got Felipe recommended to the governor general for deportation or really to dim it all down, exile. Felipe was made aware of this plan, so he sailed to Yokohama, Japan, and stayed briefly before going to Hong Kong, where he joined other Filipino exiles who found asylum there when the Philippine Revolution broke out in 1896. Basically, he exiled himself. 22 months after Felipe exiled himself and loyal to her husband as ever, Marcela and at this point their 4 daughters, the last 2 weren't born quite yet, followed him to Hong Kong. They rented a house and Marcela gave birth to their last 2 daughters. While there, their home became a sort of refuge for Filipino revolutionary exiles and even had meetings there to come up with a plan to go back to the Philippines. On December 14th, 1897, the Alcinos crossed paths with revolutionary leader General Emilio Aguinaldo and some of his buddies who came with him to Hong Kong as exiles themselves after signing the Pact of Biak-na-Bac-to. This was a truce between the Spanish colonial governor general Fernando Primo de Rivera and Emilio to end the Philippine Revolution. After he met them, Emilio asked Marcela to hand sew a flag to a design Emilio made that would embody the aspirations of all Filipinos. Now, at the time, the Philippines were under the rule of the Spanish East Indies, which were colonies of the Spanish Empire. So naturally, this was the flag that flew over the Philippines. After Marcela accepted the request, she got her eldest daughter, Lorenza, who was 5 at the time, and Delfina Ibersa Navidad, who helped her make the first official Philippine flag. The making of the 100% silk flag was a fairly short process, but it was a difficult process. They hand sewed and used a sewing machine, and not this cool sewing machine, this sewing machine. Oh, like the ones that like you had to like put your foot down and all that? No. Now, this part might be boring to some and fascinating to others, but to me, this is absolutely fascinating. Let me tell you how this design was conjured up and what all of it means. I think this is fascinating. You could click off of this channel. I just hope you don't, but trust me, it's fascinating to know this stuff. Now, all flags take inspiration from other flags, and the Philippine flag is no different. The blue and red rectangular shapes of the flag were taken from the Malina and Iloilo flags. They were 2 of the largest ports in the Philippines, and these were their flags. The blue part of the flag represents peace, truth, and justice. The red represents valor and patriotism, and the white triangle symbolizes fraternity, basically a brotherhood or group, equality, and liberty. This part of the flag comes from the French national motto. I'm gonna have the robot say this because I have tried for 5 minutes and I can't do it.
Liberté, égalité, fraternité.
That means liberty, equality, fraternity, just in French. And this motto came from the French Revolution. And in the center and the most prominent part of the flag is the 8-rayed golden sun. This sun symbolizes unity, freedom, sovereignty, and people's democracy, and each ray represents a significant province or district in the Philippine Revolution. Now, the sun is a version of the mythical sun, Son of May, which you might be familiar with because it's on the flag of Uruguay, and most famously, the flag of Argentina, and the sun represents the Incan sun god, Inti. And the 3 5-pointed stars represent the country's 3 main island groups, Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Visayas sounds like a dragon name in the House of the Dragon. And yes, though the shape of the blue and red stripes come from the 2 ports flag, the specific colors come from the American flag. But to be honest, this is full of controversy. Some argue that the colors were inspired by the Puerto Rican and Cuban flags, but we just don't 100% fully know. The making of the flag naturally led to the women's eyes and hands suffering a lot of hurt and pain from the prolonged and intense work, but the pain ended up being completely worth it. Marcela and her helpers finished the flag in 5 days, even after having to redo the flag because the rays of the sun were not in the proper direction. The flag became known as the 3 stars and a sun flag, and on May 17, 1898, Marcela personally delivered the flag to Emilio, who then brought it back to Manila. The flag was then hoisted from the balcony of his house in Cavite during the proclamation on June 12, 1898, which is the Philippines' Independence Day. Now, there is new evidence that Emilio never flew the flag, but that it was lawyer and author of the Declaration of Philippine Independence document, Ambrosio Ranzares Bautista, who flew it, and then he flew it from a window, not the balcony, of Emilio's house. Now, Marcela didn't see this history-making day with her flag because she decided to stay in Hong Kong with her husband. Marcela later said about the flag, quote, "In the house at 535 Morrison Hill, where I lived with my family, exiled from our country on account of the national cause, I had the good fortune to make the first Philippine flag under the direction of an illustrious leader, General Emilio Aguinaldo Efami. It took me 5 days to make the national flag, and when completed, I myself delivered it to General Emilio Aguinaldo before boarding the transport Macolok. General Aguinaldo is the best witness who can give the information whether or not the flag was first to be displayed in Cavite at the beginning of the revolutionary government against the government of Spain in these islands." End quote. Marcela and her family stayed in Hong Kong from 1895 to 1906. She took care of the house, which had become an asylum for Filipino leaders. Their finances had run out due to expenses by Felipe for his diplomatic activities in France and the US for the Treaty of Paris. The finances were so tight that at one point she had to sell the family's jewels and the children's pinafores, a type of apron, just to make ends meet and to help with the revolutionary funds. And this support made the family poor. A few years after the fall of the Philippine Republic and the American regime of the country was established, in 1907, the family went back to the Philippines, but they were still poor. But luckily, they did get all the money back and then some after Felipe resumed his legal practice, and they settled into their new family home in Mali. However, you kind of don't forget being poor, or at least you shouldn't. And Marcela was no different. She understood the struggle of the poor, and she made it a routine every Saturday to give donations of money, food, clothes, etc. to the beggars who went to her regularly, even teaching the daughters to help the poor, and this charity-giving gene stayed with them for the rest of their lives. When Felipe died on September 29th, 1941, it had a major impact on the family. The daughters were distraught, and Marcela was left to raise the children on her own. It also really did not help that the Philippines were entering another war, this time against the Japanese. Because remember, this is 1941. And what started in the 1940s? World War II. And also remember, this is September of 1941. And what happened in December of 1941? Pearl Harbor, baby. And what's an American territory next door to Hawaii and down the street from Japan? The Philippines. And what did the Japanese do to the Philippines? 10 hours after Pearl Harbor, invaded them. Yay. So she's going through that. Love it all. Doing what any of us would do in complete chaos, she took it all in strides. Marcela was a beacon of inspiration and stayed very realistic, very practical, very much in the now. Because it's either that or you just implode. What are you gonna do? They suffered right along with the rest of the Philippines with scarce resources and food supplies. Marcela used the same thought process with herself and her daughters she had during the revolution and taught her daughters to always share. Quote, "If it is hard to give, it is harder to ask." End quote. After their house was either burned down or incinerated, you pick the word, by the Japanese during their occupation, reportedly what Marcela said to her daughters in what I'm imagining is the most matter-of-fact whatever tone I can think of was, quote, "Well, then we have to go to Tal." Like, this is the most keep calm and carry on woman I have ever met. Her home is either burned down or freaking incinerated, and she's just like, well, we'll go to this town now. They went there and moved back into their family's ancestral home, which is somehow still standing. Though this woman survived the 1945 Battle of Manila, which was basically an all-out battle with the Philippines and the US doing an all-out assault against the Japanese troops in Manila, which is the capital city of the Philippines, lasted for a month and left at least 100,000 civilians dead and the city looking like this. After that, then Marcela's health started to steadily deteriorate. And to be frank, this battle, really fast, was the worst and most intense urban fighting ever fought by American forces. It was the largest urban battle the American forces ever fought. The civilian casualties were that high because during the battle, yeah, American firepower was killing a lot of people. The Japanese, however, were just mass murdering every and all Filipino civilians they saw. This battle has been called the Stalingrad of Asia. Just to give you an idea. Anyway, Marcela, who was sometimes called Lola Sile or Grandma Sile, was not handling her husband's death well. Her mourning got to such an extent that her daughters thought it was necessary to hide all the remaining photos of their father. Her health continued to decline, but she lived long enough to see her beloved Philippines be liberated and free from the Japanese. Donna Marcela Marinho de Agoncillo died on May 30th, 1946, quietly in her ancestral home in Tal at the age of 86. In accordance with her last wish, her body was brought back to Manila and buried next to her husband in the La Loma Catholic Cemetery, before she was moved to the Church of San Juan del Monte. Her legacy, dude. There have been several commemorative monuments and statues created to celebrate and remember the entire Agoncillo family. A marker was erected by the National Historical Institute of the Philippines on November 27, 1955. A museum was established in Tal that was another last wish of Marcela's and was named Marcela Marinho de Agoncillo Museum and Monument. And the location of the museum is the Marinho Agoncillo's ancestral home. A gorgeous statue of Marcela holding the flag along with her daughter and other friend that helped make the Philippine flag was erected outside of the house in the garden. It is called Three Women Weaving the Filipino Flag, made out of concrete and marble, and was sculpted by Filipino artist Napoleon Abueva in 1996. There is a historical marker in Hong Kong to commemorate where the first flag was sewn, though the place where they lived and other historical locations of Philippine importance are not marked. Pick and choose much, will ya? The Marcela Agoncillo Elementary School was established in her honor. In 1955, renowned Filipino painter Fernando Amor Solo painted the famous painting of the women making the national flag called The Making of the Philippine Flag. And this painting is the best description that we have of the women making the famous flag. Okay, boom, bam, boom. There you go. Short, sweet. Needed something a little bit short and sweet. My mouth is hurting very, very much. I hope I spoke the words correctly. I hope I did Marcela justice in telling her story the best that I can in the best way that I could. I really hate when I don't have a lot of info about a woman, especially a woman of this big of importance. She's the Susan B. Anthony of the Philippines. Like, come on. But I do as good of a job as I can because I believe all of these women deserve to have their stories told in not only a Wikipedia article or any kind of an article, but something that some people can come and watch and they can listen and they can learn besides just reading things. Even though you should read, please read. Sometimes it is just funner to listen to it. But yeah, there you go. The story of how the Philippine flag was made. Sure, it wasn't designed by her, but she physically made it become a thing. And it has been flown for centuries. It went through a couple of different variations, but the flag that we know today is the original flag to the utmost degree. If you learned something today, and I really hope you did, please like, share, subscribe to this channel. And while you're down there, please leave a friendly comment. Again, if I missed anything, said anything that was wrong, please kindly let me know in the comments. I do the best I can here. I will see you all in my next video. It's gonna be Halloween themed. But until then, don't be well behaved. You just might make herstory. See you next time, guys.
Coming